Hey, hey.
What's up?
What's up? Had to fix my hair. I was a little vain, I'm gonna tell you. Sorry, I gotta fix one thing, then we can roll. So let's see. Black people are in the news, which is great. And dead Arab children. And anything else? What?
I mean,
what? Like?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm watching the NFL playoffs. That's what I'm about, because I can't deal anymore with black politics and dead Arab children. So I'm just, let me know what's going on. I just can't stay up with these things anymore.
Certain anti-Semitic cartoons, and
I just don't see how the Dolphins with their offense is going to score more than 21 points on Saturday. The wind chill in Arrowhead is going to be -17. Yeah. People think they're going to come up from Miami. The quarterback is from Hawaii. You think they're going to just roll into Arrowhead in the frozen tundra and no one cares. Anyway, so what do you want to do? You want to talk about the black people or the dead babies?
I wanted to see what you thought about Katt Williams, in that we were talking the other day that I think we both agree that Katt Williams is the GOAT of comedy.
I'm just thinking about people who have found us because of geopolitics.
Yeah.
And they're like, is he the Minister of Defense? And this Katt Williams guy. Here's the thing, though. And if you stick around with me long enough, you will find out that those two things are actually intimately connected. That race politics in America and the empire politics of America are part and parcel. But that's a very long conversation. But I just would suggest to people who are sort of taken aback by this weird new show they have found that talks with great sophistication about geopolitics and also racial politics and black culture. It's like, how on earth do those things go together? Well, they do in a lot of ways. Sorry?
Can I put it succinctly here? Black entertainment is the largest cultural export of the largest hegemonic world empire to ever exist.
Correct. Yeah. Right. And so the influence of America is far, far greater. I would say, no, sorry. The influence of Black American culture on the world, on geopolitics, is far greater, believe it or not, than the American military impact on geopolitics. Now, I happen to think that, as many people do, that the U.S. superpower, of course, was the dominant hegemon for at least all of my lifetime, most of the 20th century, on all of the 21st century so far, and of course has shaped the political structures and dynamics of most of the world. But if you look at what people who are not parts of states in other countries are interested in primarily, it is another part of America, which is American popular culture. It so happens that American popular culture is always has Black influence in it, if not outright a Black creation. So you will see, I mean, Michael Jackson. Years ago, we saw this with the Michael Jackson phenomenon in the 80s and 90s. People in China and Japan and Korea and the Philippines were crazier about Michael Jackson than Americans were. I mean, you could measure it, and that goes for all sorts of Black cultural products, beginning with jazz more than 100 years ago. It was beloved by people all over the world. People who didn't really like it when, the U.S. Marines landed on their beaches, but they loved listening to Jelly Roll Morton in their shacks outside Manila. The Philippines was known for being the hotbed of jazz throughout the 20th century. And to this day, Filipino culture and Black American culture are like right next to each other and often intertwined. And a lot of Black culture actually comes from Filipino culture. The zoot suit, for instance, and then the parachute pants of the 1980s. Those were actually Filipino. The MC Hammer style, that's a Filipino creation.
Oh, that's a Bay Area thing too. MC Hammer's a Bay Area rapper. That's all.
And it's a Bay. Yeah. So we have a big Filipino population here. Super. I love that. I love that group in the Bay, partly because they've always been so closely identified with Black culture. So, and of course that all begins with what, 1898, and the landing of Marines on the beaches outside Manila, who brought with them records and phonograph players and guitars and trumpets, and they played that music when they got there, and the Filipinos loved that. They didn't love that the Marines also brought Gatling guns and, learned how to, where they were the first army to really learn how to use the Gatling gun, machine gun. So they kind of figured out, you can like wipe out an entire village like in 5 minutes with these things. And they were like, cool. And they did that a lot. So, there's the American Empire, the two sides of the American Empire, the hard government side, which just kills a lot of people, and the soft, voluntary cultural side, which is the best shit in the world, because we have the best American culture, best popular culture, and Black culture, according to many of us, is the supreme pop culture of all time. And so people love that stuff, and they're much more interested in that also, in watching the latest hip hop videos coming out of Atlanta, or in going to the Beyonce concert. Beyonce plays in Middle Eastern countries, and she sells out 100,000 seat stadiums. And I mean, governments have banned her in Egypt, I think in Pakistan, and they've banned Madonna because they're so enormously popular. The people of the Middle East, and prior to that in the communist world, were way more interested in jazz and blue jeans and Elvis Presley and Run DMC than communism or Islamism, by far. And so that's my whole thesis, is just let the people around the world take from us what they want, which is all that lowbrow stuff that the elites always look down upon, but that brings liberation to people. Just let them have that and have no foreign policy at all. Simply let that voluntary trade essentially continue. And it's not even necessarily commercial. I mean, a lot of this is absolutely free and over the internet or over the airwaves, or people just imbibe it, in all the ways that they do. Let them continue to love hip hop and booty shorts and all the things that the mullahs in Iran issue fatwas against daily, because they see this. They see Iran, especially. Tehran and all the cities in Iran are full of like tattoo parlors, and people walk around with blue hair, and there's sex parties and sex clubs and disco clubs and like underground, but they're open and out in the open too. The morality police have mostly given up. A lot of it, not all of it, but much of it is American pop culture, and much of that is derived from Black culture. And that's what people of the world have shown over more than 100 years now to love more than anything else in the world. It is the most popular culture in world history. Name another popular culture, Black American popular culture. Name another popular culture, another culture that's been more popular globally. You can't. I mean, except maybe you could say Christianity, broadly. I mean, but like, there's certainly no other ethnic culture that's been this widely emulated, celebrated, admired, than Black American culture. It is soft American foreign policy, but it's the exact kind we want. Black people, it turns out, actually can liberate the whole world. They actually can be our saviors. They don't know it. I mean, most of them don't. Some of them know it. I mean, my friend Kamasi Hill knows it, and others who I'm friends with, who we have developed this argument with, know this. But like, no, black political leaders never talk about this stuff because it's still somewhat shameful. Sort of lowbrow Black culture. This has sort of changed a little bit recently, but it's still, you can't really embrace like gutter rap and then run for Congress. It doesn't quite work. But gutter rap is what the kids in Pakistan want more than what the Taliban is preaching.
They could be our saviors, or they could enslave us.
Black people?
Yeah. Or they could.
That sounds kind of good, actually.
Yeah. Well,
because I've been, I lived around Black women in East Oakland for the last 4 or 5 years, and I love them. So I could use and also I could really use a new mother. So since mine just never really worked out, so it would be good. I mean, it's kind of hot too. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
we're talking about geopolitics. I'm sorry.
We'll be streaming on Reddit soon. So yeah, well, you've got Jay-Z and Beyonce campaigning for Hillary Clinton, is what I'm getting at. You have
sure, yeah. Well, I mean, they won't do it. They won't do the enslaving themselves, but they will assist our masters. You mean? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, of course. They will assist our masters by fooling us to believe that the masters are co-slaves, our fellow slaves. Mm-hmm. Right. The Clintons, they're the people. They represent the people. They're from.
Well, the Obamas as well. Every rapper, especially in 08, but since has been trying to align with Obama.
So if you look at censorship laws in other countries, you will find thousands and thousands and thousands of laws, which include fatwas, religious laws, right? Over the last 120, 130 years, laws against Black music. Nazi Germany had laws against Black music, which they enforced quite strictly. The Soviet Union had laws against Black music, which they enforced quite strictly. You would go to the gulag if you played jazz. You were caught listening to jazz. If you were caught listening to jazz in Nazi Germany, they had a special concentration camp for you. There was one of the very first concentration camps erected by the Nazis in 1934. There were two, one for boys and young men and one for girls and young women, who were the quote delinquents. And what they almost all had in common was a love of American culture, and especially Black culture. And then if you look at Asia, as I said, China, same thing. Maoist China had all kinds of proscriptions against Black music. You know who else did? Rage Against the Machine and Tom Morello. Revolutionary Cuba, under the leadership of Che Guevara, who in fact is the one who authored the law against Black music, Black American music, the music that you love. Also, I mean, all the indigenous stuff too. But but Che and Fidel both knew super clearly that American Black culture that was the culture of freedom. It's what moves people's bodies in ways that are spontaneous, chaotic. They are not. These are not compliant citizens on the dance floor. And it causes all sorts of spontaneity in the culture that states don't like, governments don't like. This is why the United States had laws against Black music in almost every major city. Laws against jazz, laws against rhythm and blues, laws against dancing to Black music. Look it up. Almost every American city had at one point laws against that stuff. How else is it connected? John F. Kennedy and Barry Goldwater, how important are they in the history of the American empire? In the 1950s, while they were launching all sorts of campaigns against communism abroad and at home, had a whole series of hearings investigating the dangers of rock and roll music, which then in the 1950s was considered black music, which it was. How rock and roll was going to take down American civilization, and that's how they put it. That rock and roll was going to win the Cold War for the Soviets by destroying American civilization through the underpants of the daughters of America. Because that's what was thought at the time, was that these black men with this rock and roll music are having sex with a lot of our daughters, which was happening. And it was believed that that would take down the American civilization, which in a sense was true. And the Soviets will now win. So it's all connected. It's connected in other ways too. The civil rights movement. The civil rights movement, I think I've mentioned this here before, is the reason the civil rights movement played out the way that it did, the reason we had the Civil Rights Act when we did, and the Voting Rights Act when we did, was because of the Cold War. Because Kennedy and then Johnson were competing at that time in the 50s and 60s with the Soviet Union for the allegiance of black people across Africa. They were both in a hot competition for those post-colonial liberated states that were looking for a partner now. Hot competition by both between the US and the USSR for that. And of course, it just did not look good at all to have dogs biting little black girls in their Sunday dresses walking to church on the TVs in Nairobi and Lesotho and Cape Town and all the rest of it. I mean, the Soviets looked really good because of that. And so John F. Kennedy was forced, and there's a lot of evidence for this. He said this whole book about this, written by Mary Dudziak, Cold War Civil Rights. I think that's the name of it. The Kennedys said at the time, we have to do this. We have to now support King, because they were opposed to King and the civil rights movement generally until 63, around then. And then they said, no, this looks too bad. This is when the dog started biting kids on cameras and the fire hoses happened and all that. And there were people across Africa looking at this on their TV sets or on the newspapers and saying like, wait, we're not going to join up with the Americans. They like to sick dogs on our children. And so Kennedy was very well aware of this and said, no, we have to now support integration in the South because of this. We have to look like we're the good guys to blacks in order to win in Africa against the Soviets. So U.S. foreign policy, the American empire, and racial politics and black culture, amazingly, are absolutely intertwined. Absolutely. Certainly over the last 100 or so years. The people of the world absolutely want the American empire of soul, for sure. They absolutely want the American empire of jazz and blues and rap and rock and roll and dancing and all the fun that's been produced. Overwhelmingly, people want that stuff. They do not want military bases. And they certainly don't want war. So yeah, that's the thesis. So you geopolitics people tuning in who are big fans of the Duran, as am I, and all those other channels that do this so well, do geopolitics so well, this is a new concept that I am introducing in work I have done and I am doing now. And so that's why it makes sense for this show actually to look at both of those things. Is that me? I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yep. Yeah, I wanted to progress to Katt Williams' main thesis that he had.
Yes.
Well, okay. I see often entertainers.
So some people won't know because I mean, even white comedy fans, and it really is this segregated. I think even a lot of white comedy fans won't know who Katt Williams is. Right. His audience is almost exclusively black. I mean, I think outside you and me, how many white fans does he have?
I mean, he had a
Some, but
big Comedy Central special every year. Like he was
okay. I didn't know that.
He was on top in the 2000s.
I didn't know that was Comedy Central. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Catpocalypse. I mean,
well,
I think, yeah.
His audiences at his shows, though, I think are 99% black. But I mean, he's very much a black identified. I mean, he's very self-consciously like he'll say like he's a black comedian. He is, among black comedians. He really separates them. And which in some ways makes sense because there really are two distinct styles, categories,
I think he called himself a pro-black anti-racist on the show. He said,
yeah,
I just happen to be black. That's what I am. I try to support black people. I am black. But yeah,
it's funny because he's about my color.
Yeah.
Right now, I look a little flushed right now. He's about my color right now. Funny how American race politics works. The old one drop rule. There was real quick. That reminds me, Patrick Mahomes. There was an NFL player made some joke sort of about like how there should be an all-star team game between black and white players. And so there's all this debate about that. And Patrick Mahomes, right, the greatest quarterback of all time, his mother's white and his father is, quote, black. But even his dad, I'm sure, has white ancestors. He's not particularly dark. But it's like people just assume he's black. And it's like, wait, he's definitely has far more of his ancestors are white Europeans. But yeah, so anyway, the one drop rule. And we are almost unique in that. Like in Latin America, they have multiple tiered racial structures and there's all sorts of categories. It's not just one or the other. But it's the one drop rule, which is so funny, which is just, it's so obviously racist, right? The idea, if you have one black ancestor, oh, you're black. you're over there. It's like it's a taint. I mean, it is. That's treated as a taint. Like a drop of black paint in a gallon of water.
Yeah.
It'll change the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. That's how it was originally conceived, but now you have people like Sean King and white passing individuals claim their black ancestry, whatever it may be, as their primary identity for political reasons.
Yeah, and so, this is why it is quite important to not allow them to have sex with our women. Because they can actually colonize our future generations. We can't do that to them. We can't produce white babies in black women. Isn't that weird? But they can produce black babies in white women. They're like superhumans.
We can try that. We can try.
Well, we can aspire, you mean. But I do every day. It's just the funny. I mean, anytime you just start to pick apart the American racial ideology, it's patently absurd. Why is that? Everybody, please ask yourselves this right now. Why is it? Does it make sense in any way, or doesn't that fact alone, doesn't that just sort of debunk all of our thinking about race? That a white man can't create a white baby with a black woman, but a black man can create a black baby with a white woman? Say what? Makes zero sense. It's clearly just utterly, it's just alchemy, politicized alchemy. So anyway, you were saying, back to Katt Williams.
Yeah,
he's very light-skinned, I will say.
All right. I disagree on that point as well. But
what, you don't think he's light-skinned?
I don't think so. I mean, I think what you're looking at might be a ton of makeup and a ton of lighting, but I think he's pretty dark complexion.
Isn't he from like Ohio?
Yeah, he's from Ohio. Yeah.
See, so I went to college there. I know, and Ohio is a trip. It's, speaking of race relations, that's what people don't know this about Ohio. I think they're more mixed race people there than in any other state per capita. And if you spend time, especially in Southern Ohio, which I did, it's wild how many people his color you see. You see, I mean, what used to be called mulatto is like standard in Ohio because it was a border state and because a lot of slaves ended up there.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Well, we got to interrupt right now. Do you know what currency this is? NOK? We got a 25 super chat from
North Korea.
Yeah, North Korea.
No, I mean, I don't think so. Yeah. I don't think they allow that. I wish that'd be cool to get some.
But thank you very much. They're asking about the United States bombing Yemen right now.
All right. Yeah. Speaking of black people, the Yemenis are the blacks of the Middle East for sure. Which is why we love them these days. Yeah. So they have been launching a very aggressive campaign, bombing, actually attacking in various means. Drones. They've had drone attacks on ships in the Red Sea. These are ships that are carrying cargo to or from Israel, or they are Israeli ships. But they attacked the Maersk freaking freight line, which everybody's seen those, right? If you've ever been to a port in any city, Maersk, Maersk. Are they? Forget which country the line is from. But anyway, they've attacked. And so Maersk stopped going through the Red Sea and the Suez Canal altogether. Like that's like some giant percentage of the world's trade right there. You know, it's I think it's the biggest cargo liners in the world, and the Red Sea Suez Canal accounts for I think 20% of all world trade. So it's just a massive percentage of the world just got shut down by these Yemen attacks. Now the U.S. is going. I don't know exactly what they've done militarily yet. The U.S. As of this morning, it hadn't been much. I don't think. And there's debate going on about what to do. And I know, of course, all the anti-Iran freaks, the hysterics, the neocons who are all they want to do is go to war with Iran. They, of course, see this as an absolute opportunity because the Houthis, Ansar Allah, which is actually the name of the faction or party that rules that part of Yemen now, that we call the Houthis. They're not proxies of Iran, but they're certainly allied with Iran. They're allies of Iran, absolutely. So all the neocon, anti-Iran lunatics like John Bolton, but even a lot of the sort of neoliberal, the Democratic Party and neocons too are calling for attacks on Iran. So that's really the main thing is to, in some ways, I hate to say it, it's more important in terms of stopping a big war. I mean, the anti-war movement, the attempts to go to war with Iran are even more important than Gaza right now, because that could lead to a direct war between the US or NATO and Israel and a major country with a very large military. That would just, I mean, lots of people would die on either side. It's not even clear. And I think I mentioned this weeks ago, but the way I'm finding things out about the Iranian military, which are pretty stunning. I mean, how they've created all these autonomous districts. The military has all these autonomous districts. So there are units within the Iranian military sort of spread out all around the country, each with its own conventional missiles, I found out, not nukes, but they have their own conventional nukes, and they don't take orders from Central Command. I think Central Command can sort of veto certain things, but there are these missile groups, and I think there's like dozens of them. And Iran's a huge country that borders all sorts of countries, and like it's centrally located. They have autonomous groups, military units across that country, each with their own missile batteries that can hit Tel Aviv. So we think. So, and there are ongoing attacks on these U.S. military bases in Syria and Iraq. These military bases, they're being attacked by these groups, various groups. Some are allied with Iran, some are not. Some are just Iraqi nationalists that are trying to kick the fucking United States out, finally. By the way, that's sort of a base level, that's kind of the bottom line of what's happening here. This is the final attempt. You could put it this way. What's going on right now is the final attempt by the resistance movement to kick the U.S. out of Iraq, to kick the U.S., to reverse the invasion of Iraq, to eliminate the last vestige of the invasion of 2003. You could say this is the last battle of the Iraq War. And we hope the U.S. loses. People there like neocon folks like my buddy Eli Lake, who they get outraged when these Iranian militias launch missile attacks on these U.S. bases that are in Iraq and Syria. How dare they? How dare they attack these? These are American bases. I'm like, yeah, how dare those Iraqis surround our bases with themselves? And then they attack. I mean, the nerve of those people. They're all around our base, those Iraqis.
Yeah, this is breaking news right now. The United States and Britain is launching a massive retaliatory strike against those Houthis who have been bombing. And
shit.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah. Bombing more than a dozen sites by the Iranian-backed Houthis. A massive retaliatory strike using warship-launched Tomahawk missiles and fighter jets. So this is
logistical hubs, air defense systems, and weapons storage locations. That's what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
What they're attacking. I hope it's only those things if they are attacking. Sana'a, no signs of warplanes. That's good. That's the capital city.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just worried about cities always. That's the first thing. I mean, are they going after cities where all the civilians live? But yeah, regardless, I'm sure we're killing lots of people as we speak.
Mm-hmm. And then it seems like we've pivoted from a Saudi-backed proxy war on Yemen to an Israel-backed proxy war on Yemen.
Man. Yeah, the Yemeni, I've followed I didn't know about this until recently, as with most people, but there has been apparently long-standing, deep solidarity between large portions of the Yemeni population and Palestine. And there is intense feeling within Yemen about what's happening in Gaza. And the ruling faction, Ansar Allah, again, I think that's right, are especially passionate. And they're the ones who have conducted these raids on these ships. They're the ones who they've launched war against Israel. Now, Yemen is not a large country and obviously doesn't have a large military and certainly can't do any harm militarily to the United States whatsoever, really, except for, what are called terrorist attacks. But yeah, quite a few terrorists have come out of Yemen. And I just feel like right now is the time when we actually have a very huge pro-Palestine movement in America and across the West. Huge. Right now is the time to say to our friends in Yemen, those of us on this side, hey, it is not all Americans. In fact, most Americans want a ceasefire, guys. Please don't fly airplanes into our buildings. Let's build a movement together to end this empire. When we start seeing political organizations that include people from the United States and people from Yemen and people from Palestine and people from maybe even Russia, I don't know, opponents of the U.S. empire. And that's the only criterion, really. Maybe we don't want to say fascists, but, basically, if you're an opponent of the empire, yeah, I mean, that's what we're gonna end up there. There's gonna be an anti-imperialist league, a new anti-imperialist league emerge. I predict BRICS, you could say, is that, in fact. I think it might be. BRICS is that. Yeah, so it just doesn't have teeth yet, doesn't really have a formal organization yet, but they are certainly on their way. So anyway, we are now bombing the people, Jesus Christ, who felt so passionately, who have felt so passionately about the people of Gaza, who we are also bombing. And oh, the people in Yemen who feel so passionately about all these things, they were just recently bombed for many years by Saudi Arabia using airplanes made in Seattle. And in fact, Scott Horton found some evidence, but it's almost for sure that there were actual American pilots flying in the back seats of the F-16s when they were bombing Yemen to guide, because apparently the Saudis don't have any decent fighter jet or bomber jet pilots. So they had to have Americans on board with them to get the job to run the sorties. Regardless, I mean, we know we were giving them intelligence. We know we gave them planes, the bombs, the missiles, all of it. I mean, everything that killed Yemeni children. I mean, a lot of what was happening in Yemen is what is going on in Gaza. We know that every piece of steel that sliced through a Yemeni child during that war was built by America, came from America, paid for by America. So they are going to hate us, guys. We are now bombing them again directly now because they're trying to save babies from being crushed under buildings in Gaza. They're really going to hate us. So, you know, the war on terror seemed like kind of ended, right? After Trump destroyed ISIS in Mosul and Raqqa, I mean, we haven't really seen much in the way of terror. And we haven't even talked about Islam much at all for a couple of years now, several years now. Kind of felt like maybe we were turning a corner. Maybe we were going to turn, not of necessarily of peace, but just sort of not of the U.S. war on terror anymore, that particular construct. Well, I can't imagine not getting some blowback from what we have done to the Yemeni people. I can't imagine living in Yemen and not wanting to drop the biggest fucking bomb in the world on New York City. I mean, how could you not want to hate even me for allowing that to happen in my country? I have a vote. I have 40,000 Twitter followers. I have a podcast. I know people. And I have done what exactly to stop this from happening? I've had a really great time for the most part living in America. I haven't spent my days and nights. I've spent some of them, but not all of them, devoted to ending the American empire and the killing of brown children around the world. So I am responsible too. They could think. I would argue against that, but it's a strong argument. And I'll bet you a lot of them are making that argument to themselves right now as we speak, because the United States is bombing their goddamn country again for them trying to protect children from being bombed. I mean, this is really getting to be something. The people of Gaza and the people of Yemen, these are people that have been trapped in concentration camps because it was a blockade of Yemen too. It was a blockade of Yemen that was enforced by the U.S. Navy. Nothing and no one could go in or out of Yemen for years, including medical supplies and food. So there was starvation and cholera, way worse than Gaza. We just didn't see videos. We just didn't have we weren't there technologically yet, like we're seeing from Gaza. I mean, listen, if they don't want to build a nuclear bomb and drop it on a street corner in Washington, D.C., I don't know. I would not understand. I don't know why they wouldn't at this point. Those people of Yemen, who, as far as I'm concerned, are pretty heroic recently in what they were doing for Gaza. I love the seizing of that ship. They didn't hurt anybody. It's great. So, breaking, terrifying news. Here we go again. War on Terror, number 2.
Yeah. Michael Tracy chimed in on Twitter. He had 2 really good points on this. He said, for months, the Biden administration has insisted their priority was to prevent the Israel war from turning into a regional war. Now they're bombing Yemen. And then, can someone point to the congressional authorization for war with Yemen on behalf of Israel? Having trouble finding it. So another, yeah.
You won't, yeah. You won't find a congressional authorization for any war since 1945. 41. Because we're a democracy. A constitutional democracy. That's why we do that. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking there's so many connections. It's such a nexus. Yemen has become a nexus for so many things. So you got Saudis. The Saudis don't, they tried to kill the Houthis, so they don't want this happening. They want to certainly participate in, I'm sure they'll be helping all they can. I'm sure they're a part of this military operation against the Houthis. Then, of course, they're allies with Iran. And this is just, John Bolton is masturbating furiously right now. He has like multiple think tanks devoted to going to war with Iran. But I think now I'd be curious I don't know what's the Biden administration thinking on this? Are they thinking now they are famous for being stupid and being short-sighted and for launching into things like, say the Ukraine war or like, say letting Israel kill as many children as it wants. They're known for making sort of heedless decisions. Do they really think they're just gonna like drop some bombs on Yemen and walk away? The Houthis will be like, "Oh, sorry, man, we're cool now. We're no longer mad at Israel for killing all those babies." I mean, anybody go check it out. The pro-Palestine solidarity movement in Yemen is so deep you can't even believe it. Again, think about that. The natural alliance between those two people literally just face the exact same thing by the exact same powers, essentially. Oh, and by the way, at exactly the time when Saudi Arabia and Israel launched their little alliance. So it's those three. It's the US, Israel, and Saudi Arabia who've been destroying and killing the people of Gaza and Yemen. And I mean genocidally since 2015. Began with Obama. It began with Obama. It was Hillary Clinton's idea and Samantha Power's idea to let Saudi Arabia bomb Yemen and blockade Yemen. Trump took it up, escalated it. And then Biden finally ended that war. But here we go again. Like, Jesus, that was less than a year ago. When was that?
Yeah.
I remember Scott Horton on Twitter saying, you know what, guys, I think it's really over. This war's really over. And I was like, you're kidding. Seriously? And I was like, it did not feel settled to me. And lo and behold, because I think people underestimated the Houthi movement, the Ansar Allah movement.
Mm-hmm. And our bases are still there. It's never over with our.
Yeah. I mean, the fundamental reason for the whole thing is still there. It hasn't changed a bit. In fact, there's just been a doubling down. Oh, I guess the good news is that I think the power of the American empire in the Middle East has never been so weak because of Gaza, because of the last 3 months in particular, but also because of Ukraine. Did you see this recent report? I think it was just in the last few days.
Real quick. Our friend from Norway, actually that's Norway's Norwegian money. He's from Denmark.
Right.
Speculating the same thing. Is it a distraction from what's going on in Ukraine?
Yeah. There was a recent report that the United States military is now out of artillery shells. I mean, come again? Come again? The United States military? What? In 2024 has no artillery shells? Like the main weapon in like open field warfare? What? You can't conquer any land without artillery. You can't defend against conquerors. I mean, if China could manage to get its navy across the ocean with landing craft, they could absolutely take over the whole country militarily right now. There's no way that we could stop them without any artillery. What? I mean, so this is crazy. And I never use that word, but it is starting to look like US policy is just increasingly irrational and self-destructive. So this is because of all the artillery we gave to Ukraine and now Israel. Israel's gotten a bunch of artillery too, but mostly Ukraine. It's stunning for two countries that serve really no longer any strategic purpose. Even really for neocons. I mean, Israel doesn't do anything there's no reason for us to be there. We are self-sustaining for oil. We got all the oil we need, all the energy we need, thanks to fracking. God bless fracking 1,000 times. But Israel is just a liability. And I mean, for the US, for the empire itself, I think it's going to drag the empire down. I think it absolutely could end. It's going to end itself, Israel. I think that's what's happening, but it's going to end the empire. So we want to talk about the hearings today in the ICJ.
South Africa bring genocide. Yeah.
So South Africa brought a case against Israel in the International Court of Justice, which is not the same as the ICC, International Criminal Court, but it's similar. It's in The Hague. They're both under the UN. ICJ is older, and it covers disputes between states rather than cases against individuals. So South Africa has charged Israel with genocide, according to the UN Genocide Convention, the UN's definition of genocide. And now my position has sort of changed. To me, this is mostly academic, and it's mostly just a way to force Israel to be accountable in some way. There's no way to enforce this, so the court can totally rule that Israel is conducting genocide, and there's nothing we can do about it because there is no army, right, that the court can sic on Israel. The only army that can do that is, of course, the U.S. military. But the South Africa has put together an incredible case, and it's just the evidence is overwhelming, of Israeli government officials, top level, cabinet level, and military officials making clearly genocidal statements about their intentions in Gaza, about leveling it, making it into a parking lot, inducing hunger and starvation deliberately, cutting off water to civilians, forcing a mass exodus, using what's the biblical group that they call the Gazans, Amalek, calling them Amalek, who were wiped out in the Old Testament, calling the Gazans Amalek. Many, not just Netanyahu, many have said that. And it's getting a lot of attention, which is also good. I think the policy, I don't think the policy that they are carrying out is to kill every Gazan or even most Gazans. It's certainly to move them out of Gaza, that I'm convinced of. So to me, it's absolutely ethnic cleansing, using mass murder as the means to affect the ethnic cleansing, right? To push them out, they have to kill a lot of people and destroy their buildings. I also think that all along there were clearly many Israeli politicians and others who had genocidal intentions and wanted to kill everybody in Gaza, no doubt about that. But I don't think it was the official policy that the military is carrying out. And I still sort of think that. Does that really matter? Not much. I mean, these are both massive, horrendous war crimes and completely illegal according to everybody.
If the end result is 4% of the population of Gaza is now dead, intent sort of washes away here. Like, yeah.
Who cares? Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like, yeah, so what? I mean, mass murder and ethnic cleansing gets you what in jail? Like what that should be.
Well, our chat was speculating that if this trial works out in South Africa's favor, maybe the Houthis, what they're doing will be seen as legal and justified.
Yes. Right. Absolutely. It of course, my God, it's heroic. I mean, it is exactly what I would want to do if I lived in anywhere in that area. Of course. I mean, the first thing I wanted to do was like go to Gaza physically and surround it. Like I eventually that's what's going to have to happen. The international movement's going to have to like physically going to have to be like millions of people are going to have to fly in and like physically form a human fence around Gaza or something. I don't know. God's sake. Yeah. Wow. All right. War with Yemen. That's cool. Mm-hmm. But Jesus Christ, people of Yemen, not all Americans are like that. In fact, a lot of us hate that. Please don't kill civilians.
Well, most Americans don't know that the state of Israel is only 75 years old.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
No, they think it was founded in the Bible.
Yeah.
They do. I bet you a solid majority of Americans, if asked, would say, "Oh yeah, this was founded 2,000 or so years ago, wasn't it?" Mm-hmm. By King David, right? More than that, more than 2,000 years ago. Yeah. Holy smokes, man. So what's Iran going to do? What's Hezbollah going to do? Because Hezbollah is also an ally of Ansar Allah, the Houthis. And Hezbollah has been basically conducting a small-scale war every day since October 7th. There's been missile attacks every day since October 7th by Hezbollah on the Lebanon border. And as I said in the last couple of weeks, Israel has announced basically its intention to actually invade Lebanon as well and push Hezbollah north of the Litani River, which is, I think, dozens of kilometers. So seizing more territory. They want to occupy more territory, seize it and occupy it, which would entail, of course, a massive ground war against Hezbollah, which has a much bigger military than Hamas does. So yeah, the Iran alliance, the Yemen, Iran, Hezbollah alliance is being attacked directly on multiple fronts now by the US and Israel. And they are responding in somewhat, but they could respond. Iran in particular will be called upon. That's what I'm getting to. They will now, I think, there will be immense pressure on Iran within Iran itself and around the Middle East to intervene. I got to think. Hezbollah too. They're both, to help to save. Now they're going to have to be saving. Now, Jesus Christ, Yemen will be essentially besieged again. So two very vulnerable populations being attacked by the world's largest superpowers. And Iran is the only state right now that can save those people. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. Saudi is in league with the US and Israel, so they're not going to do it anymore. Never were, really. Egypt, same story. Assad might. Assad is the only one in Syria. He might do something here, but it's mostly Iran because they have working alliances with those groups. So here we come, guys. It's regional war. It's already been a regional war, but this is just a major escalation, which looks to me like it could be a tipping point. I don't see this not escalating further from that. I don't know. What do you think?
It already has escalated, and Iran will be seen as having a responsibility to intervene, but that would trigger the decades-long neocon break glass in case of we finally get a chance to invade Iran emergency plan that has been
right. Then they get all the justifications they need for the stupid American public to think that Iran went to war against us. Mm-hmm. That's watch. I mean, any day now, that's what most Americans will be walking around talking about, how Iran went to war against the United States.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to fight them now. Guarantee that within a week, they'll have most Americans thinking that.
Uh-huh. And then the Russiagate hoax has mind virused Democrats into reflexively blaming Russia for everything. So they'll get Russia involved too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, but like I can just see it right now. They attacked U.S. military bases. Mm-hmm. And then they attacked ships, Israeli ships. And like, so now, of course, we have to go to war with. They attacked us. Why did we have military bases in Iraq and Syria? Oh, well, that's another story. But anyway, they attacked us. I mean, it's just the absolutely brain dead American public will be led by the nose into the next war. Mm-hmm. Here we go.
Some people in the chat are lamenting that we may never get to what Katt Williams had to say.
About Yemen. Katt was very, very sad about Yemen. Well, I mean, yeah, let's do it. Sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something. We can circle back to Yemen. Well, but, go ahead.
Well, I think it ties into the St. Paul story a little bit. And it frames things kind of nicely. I think Katt Williams is the funniest man who ever lived, as far as laughs delivered. Like, you can't argue with Katt Williams' level of funny.
Production level?
Yeah. Of
laugh production?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say he's right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So consistent. Amazing. His writing is off the charts, and everything is, so
and
consistent.
It's pure id too. It's just pure unleashed raw performance. Yeah.
Yep.
You don't get that anymore.
Yep. No, it's great. It's what black comedy used to be, mm-hmm. and can be again.
Yeah. It's like, if you watch his special Catpocalypse right before Obama got reelected, it's like the last truly huzzah of that kind of comedy. I don't think we've seen it since.
BET Comic View. I used to watch it every night, I think, like damn near every night for close to a decade. I think in the 90s and 2000s. God, it was like the best black comics for an hour every night. It was awesome on BET. But wait, so Katt Williams,
he is alleging that the entertainment industry is not run by merit, and that certain people are plants, that they cozy up to an establishment or they form alliances, and they further their careers to the detriment of other people who are deserving.
I gotta say, I watched some of it,
mm-hmm.
the interview he did with Shannon Sharpe. Sounded like a lot of hating and a lot of envy, and sounds like, well, Katt admitted that he's in deep he's lost all his money, sounds like he said, basically. And, I get it. When you're in that position and you're surrounded by these guys who are inferior to you, which they are, and they're making more coin and more, whatever, they're getting roles and deals and specials, etc. Yeah, but it wasn't. I found it not terribly interesting because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one of the interesting things was his discussion about how all these black actors and comedians play roles where they dress up as women.
Yeah.
And someone did a study of that recently and found it. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like it's incredible. I mean, there's like 30 or 40 sort of studio films have featured black men dressed as women in the last 10 years or something like that. And like 1 or 2 white men. It's a really fascinating question, which of course touches on a lot of the work I've done. But like, do you have a take on that?
Well, I'm curious about it. I think you've talked about the history of black drag queens and how that's like a central part of underground black entertainment. But when you're talking about major studio films, Dave Chappelle made this point too. that it's like a sort of psychological breaking of the lead male actor to be subservient and laughable and not serious.
Yep. It's a form of buck breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be interpreted that way. I'm not sure that's really what's going on, but that's a plausible explanation. On some level, that's what's happening. It's a reversal of the black mythical sexual dominance.
And entertainers like Dave Chappelle and Katt Williams, who refuse to do that on screen, sort of get blackballed from Hollywood, and they have to find Ice Cube or Spike Lee to put them in a role.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. I mean, it surprises people because, of course, black men are thought of as the masculine men in America, which is true. I mean, they are they're the last ones who were allowed to be masculine in an unfettered way. And that's why so many white boys like me and you like them so much. It's like, oh, you guys get to act like men. Cool. Can we do that too? Only if you act like us. We're not allowed to.
Yeah.
Well, sorry then. You'll have to go your own way and don't use the N-word around me. But sir, I just want to wear your jersey on my back and dance like you. Anyway. All right. Now what do we talk about?
St. Paul.
Well, here's the thing about them. They will have the right position on Yemen and Palestine.
You think so? Yeah.
Oh yeah. It'll be Ilhan Omar people.
Yeah.
So St. Paul, Minnesota, which I have family there, is very progressive, liberal, left liberal bastion. It's next to Minneapolis. And they just elected to their city council every member except for one. Well, so what was it? It's like 6. It's all women.
It's all women.
The city council, they just elected an all-female city council, and then 6 of the 7, I think, are of color also. And I believe, of course, they are also 100% progressive, liberal, Democrat, etc. So our friend Clint Russell said on Twitter, if you live in St. Paul, run, move, leave. I'm not kidding. Yeah, it's true. It's going to be a nightmare. If you want to have a business or a home or a job or a career in St. Paul, it's probably not a good idea. Or if you want to be safe on the streets, probably not a good idea. Although they got over the defunding police thing, so we'll see. But it's going to be amazing, though.
So, yeah, they'll be soft on crime, you think?
Well, they have to be. Yeah. I mean, that's changed a bit now, but they have to be, yeah. And I don't think they'll defund the police, but they'll be soft on crime. You know, it's funny, though. It seems sort of like wokeness might have had its back broken recently. I don't know. It doesn't seem to have the same power it did before. And the Israel stuff, unfortunately, is part of that reason. I mean, right? I mean, it seems to me in the last year, wokeness has really been backpedaling. I mean, Ibram Kendi got disgraced.
Well, they threatened the institutions so much that you had to backpedal away from it if you're major in power.
Yeah. And like the sort of racial hysteria post George Floyd seems to me really settled down. Like it seems almost when I see that vestiges of that now, it seems almost anachronistic. I'm like, oh yeah, we thought like that 3 years ago. We don't think like that anymore. You know, all the race stuff.
Yeah.
And the BLM has been disgraced.
Yeah.
We found out that they embezzled $90 million. Now people know about George Floyd was not killed by Derek Chauvin. You know, that's now widely known.
Also, the naming of the thing as wokeness. We were kind of talking about this back in Chicago with Batya, but it's a very useful thing for working class people to describe whatever it is, that thing that they don't like. And it's been so ingrained into the lexicon that people can immediately point out this giant political agenda whenever they see something aesthetically that they don't like, whether it's a Star Wars movie with a diverse cast or, you know, it's DEI initiatives at their local university.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, again, I don't like this, but I think it also weakened wokeness, was the very sustained, aggressive attacks by James Lindsay, libs of TikTok, etc., on the trans movement and LGBT around the groomer thing. I think that really damaged wokeness. I think you just haven't seen like hysterical protests on college campuses, except for Palestine, in years. And that's where it all starts from. So if you don't see that on campuses, it's not happening. I think it's in retreat, or I think they're trying to figure out where to go next.
Some way to rebrand
the left. Yeah, I mean the left, the cultural left, not the serious Marxist left, but the cultural left that comes and goes, and ebbs and flows with the trends and stuff. But no, I don't think it has power anymore. I think being called a racist in that way means almost nothing now. I think it has almost no effect anymore. People don't do that anymore. Remember that there were not long ago, there were these anti-racist mobs on Twitter all the time. That was like, I'd say 5-6 years ago. That was a regular feature on Twitter. That's what people were mostly doing on Twitter, was having these mobs against alleged racists and ruining their careers and getting them fired. And that was a big, big deal. And that just doesn't happen anymore.
I think that's Elon. I think he got rid of the blue check marks.
No, I think it's a broader cultural change. Again, you don't see this stuff on campuses. Again, 5, 6, 7 years ago, mass hysteria on every single college campus about white supremacy and racism, and people going crazy and taking over buildings and having riots and screaming and freaking out and hunger strikes and all this stuff for 2 or 3 years. Since then, not a peep. Everything seems to be fine for the black kids on campuses again.
So San Francisco City Hall voted 8-3 for a ceasefire resolution.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like this wokeness thing has been a giant bait and switch, because when you see the aesthetics of that, most people's initial response is, I want to be 50 miles away from whatever bullshit is going on there. So this was the scene there real quick.
Yeah.
Free Palestine, free! Free Palestine, free! Free Palestine, free! Free Palestine, free!
Yikes. Yes, as I have gone to pro-Palestine rallies and events in the Bay Area, I have been absolutely devastated whenever I arrive and see a crowd full of masked lesbians. Masked, blue-haired lesbians. The lesbian part I love. Blue hair part, I can give or take. But the masking. Why is it that to not want babies killed in Gaza, you have to wear a mask? Why are those two? And it makes me, wonder, does this mean I'm wrong about Gaza? Should I be pro-Israel now?
And why is it that local politicians who run cities with power outages because there's copper wire theft and poop on the streets are suddenly, for some reason, right about what should be going on in the rest of the world?
I hate that the left is right about this one issue. I think it's the one issue. I can't think of another issue I agree with them on. Is there another issue that I agree with them on? I don't know.
You're ambivalent towards other issues, and you're culturally, we're for advancements in gay culture and trans culture.
Oh yeah, but they're not for that.
That's what happens.
They're not for that. No, they're just for making us feel bad.
Yeah.
Now they're not for freedom for anybody.
Yeah.
They're certainly not for freedom anymore.
They're into enshrining it into law and creating a new like
gay liberation. They're against gays now. They don't want gays having fun anymore. No, but I do. I think wokeness is really just starting to disintegrate. I do. I think it has lost its purchase in the culture. It's just not as powerful. I was watching the Golden Globe Awards, and I realized about halfway through, I was like, oh wow, they haven't given an award to a black person in about a half an hour. Like they seemed to be just doing regular old award shows now. It wasn't anymore the token Olympics. Honestly, like I saw many awards that were given. I was like, whoa, they didn't do affirmative action there. They give an award to a white guy.
And I mean, Jack, the perfume nationalist, Jack Mason, has been charting how there's like been an anti-woke resistance in programming now. Like the refrain that you see on Twitter is, "I watched this amazing streaming show. Not a single black person in the whole cast. What wonderful, loved it." That's starting to happen again.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about those years right after Floyd, 21, 22. And the entertainment that was produced then was so Soviet and sterile. And, it was all political propaganda around race and wokeness. It was just maybe the scariest to most totalitarian thing I've ever seen in American popular culture. I've never seen popular culture do that radically and that fast, overwhelmingly. I mean, you couldn't really produce anything with a major audience that wasn't BLM approved then, right? Which meant you couldn't say anything except the fairy tale of BLM.
You're talking about the potential restructuring of the left. This is a prediction I've made. I believe that Joe Biden will run and be reelected. I think here's his first campaign ad. And I want to highlight the issues, or just the way he frames this entire campaign. It's very similar to what he did 4 years ago.
There's an extremist movement that does not share the basic beliefs in our democracy. All of us are being asked right now, what will we do to maintain our democracy? History's watching. The world is watching. And most important, our children and grandchildren will hold us responsible. The Vice President and I have supported voting rights since day one of this administration, and I ask every American to join me in this cause.
He can't even he can't refrain from running his words together, even in scripted studio produced ads. Like, wow,
where it's spliced together every best word.
Wow. 4 more years. I mean, can he? I just don't think he physically can make it. What is Joe Biden's physical condition going to be like 5 years from now?
Well, I think they're going to drag his carcass and they're going to make it the most undemocratic process ever and have him installed to be a figurehead for another 4 more years.
Yeah. Here's the important thing that's going to happen. So, and I everyone who gets depressed about these things, I need them to think about this every time you think about American electoral politics and how depressing it is. So in 2016, otherwise known as the apocalypse for liberals, what Trump got? Like, what was it, 70 million? And Clinton,
I think cracked 70 million. Everybody was like around 69 million, 68. Yeah.
Yeah. So Clinton and Trump got around 70 million each, right? Yeah. Right.
Just under. Yeah.
Right. So 70 million for Clinton, 70 million for Trump. Oh God, that's so sad that 140 million people voted for those two POSs. Well, the thing is that more than 100 eligible voters, like me, didn't vote. So we outvoted Clinton and Trump. The people who did not vote. We're the biggest voting bloc. I'm so proud of that. And I'm so pleased with that. So 100 million, more than 100 million American voters don't vote. And those are my heroes. But that's for among the adult population, that's something like more than half of it is. It's clearly, let's see. It's somewhere close to half. I think it's around half the adult population just doesn't vote. It's amazing. And no one acknowledges that. I mean, half the population doesn't vote.
Well, liberals will acknowledge it sometimes and say we need laws like Australia to make voting mandatory.
Yeah, force us. Yeah. Good luck. Force me. Guess who I'm going to vote for? Right. I will make it not worth their while to force me to vote. If I can vote for anybody, that's the thing. The write-in candidates, that's my game. I like that. Yeah. So no, but that means that most of us basically are indifferent or hostile to the whole system, to the whole process, to American democracy, to America itself. Most American adults are indifferent or hostile to America, guys. The idea, the political idea of America, the republic, voting, participation, our being citizens. Being citizens. Half of us ain't citizens. That's a big deal. Meaning half of us are not fascists who don't vote for people like Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. That makes my heart warm. It really does. I can walk outside in my neighborhood and think, okay, I'm not surrounded by evil people. Most people are actually good, because most people don't do that stuff. They don't vote for people like that. They certainly don't get excited about Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump.
Biden, in that ad, the first thing you see is Charlottesville. The second thing you see is January 6th.
So relevant, so important.
Yes.
Charlottesville. They're still talking about Charlottesville. And they're still pretending that there are Nazis among us, that the Trump movement is Nazis. I almost wish the Trump movement were Nazis. At least they'd be sort of more intelligent and organized, and they wouldn't be pro-Israel.
Yeah, and I want to talk about him campaigning again and this divide we're seeing on the left. His speech at the AME church that got shot up in South Carolina in 2015. He made a speech there recently, and it got interrupted by ceasefire protesters. And so...
Oh, that was at a black church?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that part. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, let me double check that. Yeah, it was... the AME Church, Mother Emanuel, one of the oldest black churches in the South.
In Charlotte.
Yeah, South Carolina, yeah.
Or wait, Charlotte or Charleston?
It's
Charleston, right? Was the shooting? The shooting was in Charleston, South Charleston.
I believe so.
I want to say the Dylan Roof shooting. This is Dylan Roof, right?
Yeah, it was Charleston, South Charleston. Yeah,
Dylan Roof, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. The one actual lynching of black people in recent history. That's an actual lynching of black people, but that's just about the only one. So, were you going to show it, or what are we?
Yeah, I'll play it real quick.
Okay.
You should honor the lives lost and call for a ceasefire in Palestine.
That's all right. That's all right. That's all right.
So the only young people who attended that were escorted out, and the geriatric congregation there was chanting 4 more years as they were being escorted.
So the contest was and is and always has been between ceasefire now and 4 more years. That's always been the choice for the Democratic Party. Ceasefire now or 4 more years of war. That has always been the choice for the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, for that matter. It's just that they've always chosen the latter. 4 more years. It's amazing that was so perfectly encapsulated right there. That choice that's what it's been. It's just that the Democrats have always chosen just 4 more years of Joe Biden and no ceasefire. So yeah, I now remember. Yes, of course, it's the famous black church. I remember because the big criticism of those protesters was that they had defiled a sacred space.
Yeah, well, how are you going to stand on these graves of slaughtered black people while you are slaughtering brown people in the Middle East?
Well, yes, but I mean, right? No, I mean, the hypocrisy is off the charts. For people to get to care about Joe Biden is really wild. And then John Fetterman, did you hear him talking today about Hamas?
I saw the clip about South Africa.
Or about the right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just it's hard to listen to because he's so dumb and so addled, just like Biden. I mean, but he was dumb before he had a stroke. Trust me, John Fetterman was always a moron. I mean, just not bright and not talented and embarrassing. And he's a rich kid, my God, who wears Carhartt fucking to show that he's working class when he's not even working class. Think about that. He's deliberately ugly to make himself look working class when he's not actually working class. I mean, this guy is and then he's a politician, and then he takes lots and lots of money from AIPAC. Turns out, we found out. I think he's number 1 or 2 or something like that among senators, taking huge amounts of money from AIPAC. And so he just reads from his little teleprompter thing that he has that his aide holds up for him. He just reads lines, bullet points that are written by the AIPAC lobbyist. And this is the Bernie Sanders of the future. This guy was the hope of the left. All the Marxists were really excited about Fetterman. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is so embarrassing. I don't even know what to do. I mean, we are propping up these people and pretending that they're intelligent and impressive. Gotta fix that.
Yeah. He won, though, because Donald Trump decided to back a liberal celebrity, Dr. Mehmet Oz, against him. So compared to Dr. Oz, he is a working class hero.
Right. He needed that. He probably paid off Oz to run. Hey man, I need someone even richer than me to be my opponent. Can you do that? Mm-hmm. You wear the suits and I'll wear the Carhartt. Because that's what working class guys wear. It's actually not even true. Carhartt is worn by hipsters for the most part nowadays.
And the cast of Yellowstone.
Yeah, not steel workers. No. Mm-hmm. In fact, there aren't any steel workers anyway. So no, Fetterman is the whole thing is so repulsive and pathetic and disgusting. And I mean, that alone should just show you that the entire liberal establishment is utterly bankrupt and corrupt. I mean, there is just not anything there. I would say there is some intellectual value on the left, sort of to the left of Bernie Sanders. There's something there. I mean, I'm not saying I agree with it, but there's some intelligent, serious people, I think, with some ideas that should be grappled with. And some of them I do agree with. But the liberal establishment used to have great intellectuals in it. There used to be great intellectuals, liberals. I mean, I didn't agree with them, but they could write books, man. They could make arguments. They could kill an essay. And they made arguments that became persuasive and compelling to most people, and they became the establishment and majority. We don't have that anymore. I mean, these people are so goddamn dumb. I can't believe it. You watch MSNBC, your brain starts to fall out of your head.
And then you endorse Chris Christie.
Chris Christie is a genius, dude. Are you kidding? Compared to these people? No, he really is. Chris Christie's an intellectual titan. Mm-hmm. MSNBC and CNN, I mean, the Don Lemon, I guess not there anymore, but he was kind of the face of CNN for years. That cat can't think his way out of a paper bag. I mean, he is the dumbest motherfucker I've ever seen. And these MSNBC, I mean, they're just talking to these middle-aged white housewives. And so they speak accordingly. There is no liberal intelligentsia anymore.
I think Trump hysteria has still taken over the mind of liberal. That's what they're running on for 2024 is Trump bad again. The content of the speech that Biden had for that, I'm going to call it a campaign speech because it really was. He compared basically January 6ers to lost cause Confederates. He said,
Sure.
yeah. He said, now we are living in an era of a second lost cause. Once again, there are some in the country trying to turn a loss into a lie, which if allowed will turn once again, bring terrible damage to this country. And this time, the lies about the 2020 election, the election which you made your voices heard and your power known.
History, history, history. It's always about history. It's unreal. You just can't, if you're a Democrat, you can't make an argument about any issue without talking about slavery. I mean, you have to bring slavery into every issue. Unbelievable. Or segregation. They give you that option. You can talk about Jim Crow too, but that's
redlining.
Okay, true.
So
it's a wide, very, intellectual, a lot of intellectual breadth there. You're right. Yeah. Every issue must be explained by one of those things. Unbelievable. Yeah, the intellectual bankruptcy. When I entered graduate school in 1991, Columbia run by liberals. I mean, we had serious lefties too, but it was run by liberals, and it was a liberal culture. And this was the intellectual elite of the liberal establishment. I was among them, and they weren't as smart as the lefties, but there were some who could really write a book, and could really put forward an argument and could understand other arguments in a sophisticated way. I mean, liberals were always the dumbest people in the room, but there were some among them who were so well trained at their fancy schools that they could actually put together a decent, compelling case for something. Not so anymore. I just don't see it. They're good at writing novels. Very good. Liberals can write the shit out of a novel, which will then get made into a movie. Mm-hmm. But boy, in terms of political analysis, there's no more Kenneth Walzers. There's no more Richard Hofstetters. There's no more John Kenneth Galbraiths. I mean, those guys all had their problems, and they were basically establishment liberals, but they were brilliant. We don't have it. Who's a brilliant liberal? Steven Pinker? Is that who is supposed to be the brilliant liberal these days?
All the scientists that were found.
Yeah, Sam Harris. Sam Harris. And has everybody been watching Sam Harris's performances recently? Wow. Just delicious. I mean, the kid is just vacant. Norman Finkelstein just eviscerated him the other day. I mean, the shit he has been saying about Gaza is just stunningly stupid. I think Norm called him certifiably imbecilic.
Before we get going, gotta ask.
Yes, sir.
What are the tunnels doing under the Chabad World Headquarters?
Pedophilia, for the most part. I mean, the Jewish version of pedophilia, which is why they found that mattress with the stain on it.
Yeah.
What the fuck, guys? Well, was it Cernovich? Was it Cernovich? Jake Shields, I know, was one of them. These idiot right-wingers actually did show their anti-Semitism with this one. No, they built tunnels. The Lubavitchers built tunnels under the synagogue so that they could observe during COVID. It was a way to duck the lockdown. They should be celebrated by the right wing. Instead, they make them into pedophiles and shit. Like, why do people's mind go immediately to pedophiles every time?
Well,
what?
They were already proven right that there are tunnels, like a giant anti-Semitic trope that the Jews are underground in tunnels, and we have literal video of Orthodox Jews climbing out of the sewers now.
I know, that was the most surreal thing. I was like, what is happening here? I thought it was Photoshop or something. I thought it was faked. Mm-hmm. But that's what it was. It was so that they could go to synagogue during lockdown.
Mm-hmm. Well,
why did people immediately made it about pedophilia? I'm like, Americans' minds are so puritanical, and at the same time, they think about things that.
Well, if the pedophilia thing is true, it's for a different reason, I think.
The Lubavitchers?
Well,
I've never heard of. Have I? There have been some Hasidic sects which have had some accusations about that. I don't know if the Lubavitchers have, but okay, it's possible. Certainly possible. Yeah.
Well, it's that hyper-religious, especially traditional religious organizations, have the highest instance of pedophilia, period. And if they have special protections and special things where they can operate without the surveillance of the law, chances are they'll get rid of that. But that would implicate other churches as well, these traditional communities that right-wingers find so based. But
yeah,
I think I don't think it's time to shame these people for trying to figure out what's happening amid one of the most surreal news stories that ever happened.
Oh yeah? Wait, you want to find out? You think there's more to it?
Yeah, I think the timeline doesn't work out with COVID. I think these were built in the last.
Oh.
Yeah, they were built more recently.
Oh, more recently?
Yeah.
Oh, I would have thought before COVID, maybe they built them.
And I understand New York City filling them with cement because they are a structural hazard to surrounding buildings. But it sounds like immediately filling them with cement before doing a proper investigation as to what a secret tunnel was doing in a very powerful sect's headquarters is kind of covering up evidence of something.
Oh, great. Okay. Maybe. I mean, I have to say I didn't look too deeply into this, but I mean, I know the Lubavitchers because anybody who's lived in New York or Brooklyn, where I've lived, especially, you know these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not closely, but they're around you see them every day, literally, if you live in New York. And I just don't recall that ever being. I don't recall any accusations. I remember other Hasidim being accused of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying this means that it doesn't happen with the Lubavitchers, but it's not been known, and they've been around for decades and decades and decades. And I don't know. It just seems anti-Semitic to me. I think a lot of America still doesn't see Hasidim and don't know what they look like, and it just looks so weird, and it freaks them out, and they immediately assume it's something gross and evil. They're not gross and evil. They're Orthodox Jews. I mean, it's a job description, and these are the people who follow the rules to the letter of the Talmud, and that's
Have you read
it.
The Talmud, Dad?
It's deep and long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's how they live. Now, if you think that's gross, okay, but like that's what it is. I think it's sort of gross in some ways, but I don't care because they don't make me do it. So I think it's anti-Semitic, dude.
Okay, I think this is how conspiracy theories proliferate and get credibility. Is something mysterious happens that validates another conspiracy theory that was already in the works. The people who were right maybe, I don't know, overshoot their shot, but they are condemned for asking questions and trying to get to the bottom of it, and then it's all memory hold, and then
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
so you're sticking to your Jewish pedophile ring theory, huh?
Well,
the
I'm just saying we should investigate what's going on in the tunnels. I'm just saying.
Okay. Have they already filled them with concrete?
I believe so. That night, the New York City Police Department were saying, everybody get out now. That's why people were rushing through the tunnels.
Why was it an emergency?
Because once they've discovered this, it's a structural hazard to buildings above it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Covering up that evidence. Well, Dasha has another subject to make a movie about now. Be perfect for her. Make a film about this. All right, geopolitics fans, we close on that. And thank you all I hope people heard me synthesize the various things we talk about on this show and explain why we do and why they actually fit together. So thanks, man. This was good. Yeah. Oh, we got to talk about where we're going. So we're going to Unregistered Live, which is a hangout on Zoom we do with patrons of the show right after Unreported every week. And if you want to join us, go to patreon.com/unregistered. You're going to show it?
Yeah.
Patreon.com/unregistered. Become a patron at any level, and you'll be able to click the URL and come on into the Zoom room and hang out with us. every Thursday after Unreported at this time. So that's where we're going right now. And I'll see Michael over there right now. And Michael, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
See you there.
Peace. Yeah.
Peace.